What if I told you there's this force in finance? I mean, it's so powerful that Albert Einstein supposedly called it the eighth wonder of the world. It's called compound interest. And really, it's this simple, almost magical idea of your money starting to earn its own money. So today we're going to break down exactly how this one concept can turn these small beginnings into some serious, surprising wealth.
Okay, so here's what we've got on tap. First, we'll cover what compound interest actually is. Then, we'll dive into something called the reinvestment effect to see it in action. After that, we'll talk about the power of time. It's your secret weapon, really. Then, I'll give you 3 ways you can actually harness this stuff. And finally, we'll talk about why the slow and steady path is the way to go. So let's jump right in.
All right, so what is this engine of wealth creation? Well, at its core, it's a surprisingly simple idea. So here's the deal. At its heart, compound interest is just reinvesting what you've already earned, right? So instead of cashing out your profits, you put them right back into the pot. And what that does is it means your next round of earnings is calculated on a bigger amount. It's your interest earning its own interest. It's literally your money making money for you. Okay, theory is one thing, but let's see how this actually plays out. Let's imagine a tale of 2 investors. They're starting on the exact same path, but as you'll see, one tiny choice is going to lead them to 2 very different destinations. All right, let's meet our 2 investors. We'll call them Investor A and Investor B. Now, they both start with $10,000. They put it in the exact same investment, and it earns a nice, steady 7% a year. And they both plan to just let it sit for 30 years. But here's the thing. They make one single different choice. Investor A, they take their earnings out every single year. But Investor B, they just leave it alone. So, fast forward 30 years. Where does Investor A end up? Well, by pulling out that $700 in interest every year, they've pocketed a grand total of $21,000. That's on top of their original 10 grand, of course. And look, that's not bad. It's a decent return. A perfect example of simple interest. But I want you to just remember that number, $21,000. Okay, now, what about Investor B, the one who made that one tiny decision to just reinvest everything? After those same 30 years of doing, well, pretty much nothing, their total earnings come to $66,123. I mean, wow, that is a staggering difference. Just look at that on the screen. It's not just a little bit more, is it? It's a huge leap. That one decision, just to reinvest, led to more than triple the returns. That is the reinvestment effect, right there in action. It's that magical moment when your earnings start having their own earnings. Okay, let's kick this up a notch. If reinvesting is the engine, then time is the rocket fuel. See, compounding over a really long time can lead to some truly massive growth. And honestly, this is where it gets really, really exciting. All right, let's raise the stakes a bit. We've got a new scenario with Investor C and Investor D. This time, they both start with 100 grand, and they're disciplined. They add another $10,000 every single year. And just like before, they're getting that same 7% return. The only difference between them, the only variable, is time. Investor C invests for 15 years. Investor D goes for the full 30. So after 15 years, Investor C has built up a portfolio worth over $500,000. $527,000 to be exact. And you know what? By any standard, that is a huge success, a phenomenal result. But what happens if you just double the time? With that extra 15 years, Investor D's portfolio doesn't just double. No way. It absolutely balloons to over $1.7 million. Now, stop and think about that for a second. The first 15 years got them about $500,000, but the second 15 years, that added over $1 million more to the pile. That, right there, is exponential growth in its purest form. And this chart tells the whole story in one picture. You see, you double the time, but you end up with more than triple the money. That's the magic of compounding, when you give it enough fuel, and that fuel is time. It's those later years where the growth just goes crazy, where that curve really starts to sweep upwards. Okay, so understanding all this potential is pretty exciting, right? But the big question is, how do you actually harness it for yourself? Let's turn these big ideas into a simple, step-by-step action plan. Really, it all boils down to 3 key things. Step 1, start early. We just saw why, right? Time is your most valuable ingredient here. Step 2, reinvest everything. That means any profits you make, capital gains, dividends, whatever, just plow them right back in. And hey, a lot of platforms will even do this for you automatically, which is awesome. And finally, step 3, avoid crazy risks. You've got to protect that initial investment because compounding can't work if the money's not there to begin with. So let's drill down on that third step for a second, because it is absolutely crucial. If you want to let compounding do its thing over decades, you have to protect that principal amount. This is all about playing the long game and protecting that beautiful compounding machine you're building. And this quote, yeah, it just sums it up perfectly. Compounding is not a get-rich-quick scheme. Not at all. It's a system that rewards patience and consistency. Resisting that temptation to chase those huge, flashy, risky gains, that's often the smartest, most effective strategy you can have. So how do you actually do that? How do you find that steady path? Well, it really starts with that old saying, don't put all your eggs in one basket. You got to spread your money across different types of investments. Things like stocks and bonds, and then diversify inside of those categories too. The whole goal is to avoid 2 big mistakes. 1, chasing those super risky, high-flying trends that could blow up, and 2, the total opposite, which is letting fear keep all your money just sitting on the sidelines in cash. Now look, no strategy gets rid of risk completely, but this balanced approach is what's going to protect that compounding machine we've been talking about. So if we boil everything we've talked about down to one single core truth, it's this. Your greatest asset in investing isn't the amount of money you start with. It's the amount of time you have. The ideas are simple, but their incredible power is only unlocked when you actually get started. Look, the math is clear. The potential is just enormous. You've probably heard that old saying, right? The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. Well, the second best time is right now. Your future self is waiting. So really, the only question left is, when are you going to start?